This is the final presentation in this module on building great relationships. The next module we're going to look at problems for leaders and where leadership goes wrong, and learning from failure, which we're going to talk about, and examples of poor leadership. But before we get on to the poor stuff, what not to do, here's some final tips on what to do. So bear with me. 8 more tips on building relationships. Here we go. The book I've put on the front is a book called Communicate to Inspire by a guy called Kevin Murray. He's also written a book called Language of Leaders. Both very good. I'm going to do like a book club at some point, and I'll put on all the books I would recommend. I've read literally hundreds, and I'll probably reduce them to a top 10 and talk through them and the reasons why I think they're good and why I would recommend them. But this is definitely one, and it's very much based on building great relationships. Before I start, I was going to start with a quote by a guy called Dave Hatfield, who's a New Zealand psychologist. So I'll read it out to you. I'm sure you can read it, but if you're driving, you can listen. As coaches, we can't change the world, but you can do your little piece to encourage character, self-reliance and leadership in the players we coach. I'm reminded of the old story about a little boy walking along a beach where there were tens of thousands of starfish washed up and dying. When a man saw the little boy throwing them back into the sea one at a time, he told the little boy he was wasting his time, that he wasn't making any difference. The little boy replied, "I make a difference to that one, I make a difference to this one, and you as coaches can make a difference to your players." So what's the point of the story? The point of the story is leadership is not just about leading the masses, it's about leading individuals. It's about getting a hold of individual people who work for you, spending time with them, make them feel valued, and seeing them grow. And that is as motivational and should be as motivational as taking a whole organisation to a place. In fact, you can't do one without the other. So here are the key tenets really that I would recommend you think about in terms of managing all those relationships. And I think it's something I learned when I was in the national job as the head coach, where I was so busy doing the day-to-day stuff. My individual relationship with players didn't suffer, but I probably didn't spend as much time as I could have done with individuals, certainly not the players who were getting picked. The irony is you spend all your time with the players who aren't getting picked, explaining to them why they haven't been picked and what they need to do to get back in the team. And often those coaching moments where you would come off a training field, put your arm around a player, say, "Listen, I thought you were fantastic today. Just the way you managed to lead the defensive line or whatever it is." It doesn't have to be rugby, obviously. It can be anything in terms of when you speak to someone and then you say to them, "Listen, would you mind having 5 minutes? We'll just have a quick chat about how I think can help you get better. Or I just need some feedback on something. Have you got 5 minutes for a coffee?" And by giving them that attention, your relationship with them is bound to improve. And it's often in the day-to-day life we lead, we're so busy with phones and emails and everything else, we forget the individual communication is key to success. And this is reiterated in these key points here. So I think number one, and these aren't in rank order, it's just about creating mutual wins. So you want to try and create an environment that means that the people that are working for you feel like they're achieving some form of success, and you're looking out for them and trying to help them improve, or physically giving them something as motivation to work harder, whether it be a personalised recognition or a prize or even it's just a way in which you've made it easier for them to do their job better. This is reiterated by this point here. Do this by making people feel cared for, giving them recognition and regular encouragement of development. Again, I come back to the point, we often don't spend individual time with employees. We don't create that space in our diaries, and it's absolutely critical. In fact, I would say it's fundamental to great leadership and building great teams. Some leaders struggle to give trust, and the irony is, the paradox is, if you give power, you get power, and if you give trust, you will get trust. And people very rarely let you down. Certainly in my experience, I had a lot of opportunities to put young players into a national team, and trusted them that they would deliver in the big moments, and every time they did. And I think by giving the trust, they repay it back for you tenfold. And that's the point I've just made. Understand that your power as a leader increases as you give it away. So if you hold on too tight and you're the one who's in control all the time, I think you limit your leadership potential. Whereas if you give power away to your senior management team, to your senior players, then they will respond with extra motivation to try and make it work for you. Your listening to talking ratio has to be weighted in favour of listening. People have to feel their voice counts. And this is absolutely critical. You see it time and time again in meetings where people have got the laptops up, they're sending emails, they're on the phones, or you're in a one-to-one meeting with someone and they're doing something else. They're multitasking, but they're not really multitasking and listening to you at the same time. And you come away from a meeting feeling demotivated, that it was a waste of time. They weren't really listening, and they certainly weren't valuing your opinion. So try not to interrupt. It's a big one for me. I'm desperate to help people get better and improve, and often I'll jump in with a suggestion when in reality I know I should be better at waiting and letting them do the talking and trying to ask the right questions to draw more out of the people I'm having the conversation with. Number 6, make sure you give your full attention to someone and suspend multitasking. So I can't reiterate that point enough, because if you go through 7 and 8, particularly number 8, spend at least 15 minutes a day learning about the people you lead. What are their hopes and dreams? People genuinely feel empowered and motivated by the fact you've taken time to listen to them. Particularly if you're a leader of a big organisation and you often get a chance to speak to people on the shop floor. Make sure you leave the space in your diary and no agenda conversation. What you're doing, how you feeling, how's the family, what are you hoping for in the next 10 months, 12 months? Is there anything I can do to help you? Have you any feedback for me, type thing? And another one obviously is the personalised recognition. So, great story of a leader who stood up in front of a conference with his PA's name badge on his lapel, and he said, the reason I've got her name badge on my lapel because I wouldn't be here without her. She's singly the most important person in this organisation for me, and it was just a small gesture, but it was personal to her, and I think she appreciated it, and so did the rest of the audience, because they felt that it was a personal recognition. And it doesn't have to be anything more than saying thank you to someone for what they've done, or a handwritten note, or a card, or whatever it is. It can range from the thank you to a bonus that someone receives for living the values, or a dinner for two, or a trip to the theatre. But something personal really makes a difference. And if you can wrap all those 8 up in the way you behave, and particularly find time for the people that you lead, you will be a great leader. So I hope you've enjoyed that module. We're going to go on to problems for leaders and poor leadership next, just as an examples of what to do. So I hope you enjoyed that also.